There's actually like a video. There's a video of me when I was like maybe like 3 or 4, and it's me and my brother, and we're running around the house in our underwear. I have a cape on, I have a crown and a scepter, and I'm running around like, I'm the queen, I'm the queen. And of course my uncle is like videoing this, and he's like, no, you're a king. I was like, I'm a queen. I was like so avid about like being a queen. I'm like very serious about this. And like thinking back to all of that now, it's like there was a lot of framework for like who I am today. So so my name is Phoebe VanCleefe. I'm from Houston, Texas. Currently in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I would say that I am a non-binary Black trans woman. Non-binary to me means that I don't adhere to the gender expectations of what you believe my gender to be, or like what I tell you my gender is. So instantly when people say, oh, you're a trans woman, so like this, and this is expected of you, I don't identify with any of that. Like, and like, because my gender is a little bit more expansive than that, it doesn't, like, not to say that like none of the quote unquote feminine characteristics like I identify with, but like my experience is more expansive than that. It's larger than just like male or female. I feel like Texas was, for me, kind of stagnant, and so, you know, trying to kind of like broaden my scope and my access to kind of the work. So I do quite a bit. Most of what I do is specific to like homeless youth. So on the ground, I'm a program specialist for an LGBTQ youth center. Actually, it's the Attic Youth Center. It's the only youth-specific LGBTQ center in Philadelphia. It's the oldest as well. So I do that work on the ground, but I also do national level work with the National Youth Forum and True Colors Fund, as far as like policy and practice on a local and national level. So
what do you do for self-care?
Huh?
Yeah, what is that?
Like I've actually been like working to like see what that looks like for me. Reading, like lately, actually, it's been reading. It's been like there are several like books that I've been just interested in, and I feel like in my adult life, I haven't been reading as much as I used to, because I used to love to read. But lately I've really been like indulging in books. So often it's so much stuff going on. Yeah. And also I feel like I've been like conditioned to like be on my phone. Like no matter what, like I just have to be on my phone. And so trying to like break myself out of that, I like actually have to turn it off and be like, okay, back up, like I need to do something different. So being a kid in Houston, it was hot. Houston is always hot. Growing up in Houston, it had its like high points, but it's also had, I mean, it's had its low points too. A lot of like bullying, of course, like the typical kind of. A lot of it had to do with like what people perceive to be like feminine and masculine. Of course, I only know this now, but like, essentially, at first it was the idea of the way that I speak. So like being from Texas, living in very like Black neighborhoods, speaking with like clear diction and stuff like that, because most like my parents are from like California and Phoenix, like, so like they speak very very crisply, and like that was the thing in my house. They felt like at first it was like, oh, you talk white. So and that I didn't really like understand or associate with, so I was like, oh, okay. And then it shifted, like when I got a little bit older, it's like from you talk white to you talk gay. It's like, aha, that's different because it's not where I'm at, but all right, cool. So it was a lot of that and a lot of like, just like small stuff. It would be like, you don't walk the same, you don't wear your clothes the same. Like it was, you're not conforming to what's expected of you as a black young man. When I was younger, I was I sang, and so I was in like the church choir and like school choirs and stuff like that, and I would be a part of talent shows and stuff like that. So I was bullied, but then I also had like a sort of community because like they felt like I was talented. So so the moment I realized I was LGBTQ was interesting. So it was actually with my first girlfriend, and to this day it's my longest relationship, which is kind of sad, but whatever. I think I was dating a woman who was masculine of center, and so like people would always look at me like, of course, like, oh, you're too feminine, because like aesthetically I like that particular look, and so oh, you're too feminine, so you're dating as close to a guy as you can get by dating someone who's like masculine of center. And it was us kind of having that conversation around like, so what actually like how do you identify? And like the start of the conversation was like, well, people call you gay. How do you feel about that? And I was like, I've never identified as gay. Like I've never really felt like gay was me, because it's not that I don't like. I felt like gay was specific to like interests in like women, right? And I had interests in women. I was with the women, so I didn't really understand that. And then it was like, well, maybe it's not really about like your sexuality. Maybe what people are perceiving is specific. Well, I didn't realize this then, but like it was like specific to just the way that you act. It's like, well, like how do I act? I was like, well, you act like a woman. And I was like, well, what does that even mean? Like, what does act like a woman mean? Like, do you act like a woman? And we had this conversation around like feminine kind of energy and stuff like that. And I was like, mind you, this is all, I'm like 14. So I didn't have a whole lot of like understanding for stuff. I was like, I don't know what that means. But then like thinking back over my life, as a kid, I was always like dressed up and like, or trying to be like dressed up with hair and like makeup, and I was playing my mom's makeup. Like I started to realize maybe in like the 9th grade, because when we kind of had that conversation. Okay, so this is gonna get deep. All right, so my mother was physically, mentally abusive, and had been for, most of my life. So when I had decided to transition, a lot of what was happening was a lot of like distance and kind of like pushing away, and then of course like the instances where like I was younger, trying to like experiment with gender, with like her makeup and or like clothes and shoes and stuff. She was very against it, and would make sure that you knew that. So like I kind of knew where she sat on that. So I had like a lot of like, I often feel like it was because like I really couldn't reconcile who I was with where I was living, or I couldn't be open about who I was. Had a lot of legal troubles and stuff like that, and when I decided to transition, I felt like a lot of like I didn't really have support, and so then I ended up getting kicked out or whatever. So I started to rival sex work. And of course, like, I feel like a lot of that has kind of shaped me to who I am today. I think like living as a trans woman is one of these things that's been such an eye-opener for like femme people in general, just because you never realize how much a person experiences until you're like walking parallel. And then also like there's this idea that like people are strong so they can like deal with it, and I was starting to watch myself kind of crack apart, because survival sex work took a toll on me, like mentally, and like it was a lot of times like I questioned my own worth as a person, and like how much I was actually like giving back to the universe and the world, and like what did I really mean to this, and from there like I kind of felt like, you know, as a person who was an abuse survivor, who had to experience survival sex work, I felt like the only thing next to do was like tell my story, like, and not just tell my story, but like give other Black trans women more options, you know. And from that point, it became more so about like advocacy. I started off in kind of like going to different like drop-in centers or whatever, and like engaging with the staff there, and like, you know, like how does this work, like what, like how do I get A, like how do I do this, and you know, some really awesome people just was like, okay, well if this is what you want to do, I can hook you up, and they hooked me up. From there it was about like kind of pushing my way through, and kind of the work that I do now around like LGBTQ youth homelessness is truthfully the start of that was my house mother, Twiggy Pucci Garcon. I basically walked up to her at this conference that I ended up going by accident, and I was like, everything you said, because you know she had just spoke, like everything you said was amazing. I want to do that. Like how do I do that? Like what you're talking about. It was like, what's your email? And so like I get my email, and I'm like, I don't ever use my email. She was probably full of shit. Like like I fully thought that she was gonna pay me. But maybe like 2 months later, like I got this thing, and it was like, sign up for this, and I signed up for it, and then I end up on the 40 of the 40 for the True Colors Fund. And we started doing really intensive training and work, and I started learning about policy and practice, and like how to kind of influence those things, and yeah, and now we here. Yeah. Long ride. To the people who are like having similar experiences, I feel like the only thing to say is that like those situations don't define you, but also those situations can be the catalyst that pushes you forward. So much of my time like spending in, you know, like the sex work field was like doing that work and feeling like I just want to escape this. This is a disgusting part of my life. I didn't, you know, see myself as worthy or valuable doing that kind of work. And getting older and like not necessarily having to participate in survival sex work anymore, I started to realize that a lot of those principles and a lot of that those thought processes shaped shaped the way that I engage organizations and the work that I do now, period. Like, it's like the way that I demand to be paid up front. It's a lot of principles and stuff that I've learned from survival sex work that I carry over into things. And I feel like that's beautiful. Like, I feel like it's kind of like a triumph from the tragedy kind of thing.
So what would you say to someone who is not in the LGBTQ community, maybe someone who's anti-LGBTQ, or someone who like hates you because of your race or because of your identity? If you have an opportunity to look them in the face, what would you say to them?
What would I say to them? Watch this. Like, watch me move.